Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
It's the best day of the week. That's right. We are
go.
missing our MC. So Brandy's going to take over today.
Yeah, Will was participating in the F1 festivities this week. So thanks to Jamie for hopping on with us. We have some interesting things to get to today, some more money flowing into the space and a business that has been brought back from the dead. But before we jump into that, how was the weekend? Did you guys do anything fun?
I didn't get caked by Steve Aoki like our absent member did. But yeah, went fishing, same old over here. Caught a couple bass. But that's about it. Getting ready for Thanksgiving. You guys going anywhere? Part of the travel trend?
Yeah, I'm going up north to Saratoga tomorrow night. So it'll be part of that craziness. How about you, Jamie? Are you going anywhere?
We're going to be doing Thanksgiving through Thursday here in Atlanta and then driving up to Knoxville, Tennessee to spend the weekend with my wife's family. They've got a big family. They all do one side for Thanksgiving and then get everyone together on Saturday night. My father-in-law is one of 13, so it is usually quite the adventure in terms of a big family Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. Do y'all rent out a hotel or something, or what's?
No, they do it at someone's house, and they with a big sort of screen and patio, and it's sort of, and everyone brings something, everyone finds a spot to sort of cram in, and it's good family time.
Yeah, I mean, we have 15 people for Thanksgiving this year, and I thought that was a lot, but that wins. That's a lot. And it'll be interesting, I think, for next week when we kind of see how all of the Thanksgiving travel pans out. But I hope everybody has safe and stress-free travel this week. It's gonna be hectic. But kind of jumping into our first topic, Michael, do you want to tell us about some VC activity that we're finally seeing?
Yeah, well, first of all, VC funding this year is up 30% from last year. I don't know how much that piece of data tells us because last year it wasn't great. And so that means this year it's only marginally better. I do expect maybe double that come 2025, hopefully, and or a lot more M&A activity, and we'll get into that as well. But Lighthouse raised an extortionate amount of money, $370 million. And they've earmarked it for, you guessed it, AI, as well as M&A. So, Jamie, I know you know Lighthouse a lot better than I do. Give us a quick overview on what they do and what you expect to see from them.
Yeah, first, and congratulations to Sean and the team. Like, that is a huge raise. We finally have maybe the first unicorn. Have we stopped talking about unicorns, sort of billion-dollar companies? Is everyone a unicorn now?
Everyone that's getting funded is a unicorn. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the sort of data space. So for those of you that maybe don't recognize the Lighthouse name, they used to be known by OTA Insights. So European company, sort of built around, I think they're based in Belgium, built around tracking forward rates for hotels. So essentially like rate monitoring, figuring out like all your competitors, how they're pricing on any given night across all the different OTAs by all the different room types. And back, what is it, 2 years ago, they famously, or for at least me famously, bought Transparent. And why that was fun for us was they announced their acquisition the day before we announced our acquisition by Alpine, the private equity group that bought us. So they sort of took our thunder a little bit with that acquisition.
And then you stole their news cycle, so you left them having just a day in the news. So.
But you better believe that every mention of AirDNA's acquisition included, and Lighthouse was purchased by OTA Insights. So, yeah. But I think it shows one, how much value there is in data and how much growth there is in the sector. For me, and one of the biggest telling factors was that all of their VCs that sort of put money in their 2021 round, where they raised, I think, like $80 million.
Yep.
Came back in for this next round to continue. So, they see the growth. Sounds like a company that is really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, it's good to see that. I would also caveat that there's not a whole lot of net new like Series A, Series B. So there's a lot of capital on the sidelines that has to be invested, and why not doubling down on existing investments that are doing quite well. So good to see. Very interested in what, you guys took the route of buying a PMS. So I wonder if they're going to go down the route of buying a PMS. What kind of M&A do you see in their future?
Yeah, and maybe it's, and we'll talk about sort of the PMS RMS and combination with our next story, but there more than likely is an opportunity on how you get OTA insights in the hands of more and more operators. And they said they have 70,000 hospitality providers as customers now, and we know that there's hundreds of thousands of hotels. I think a lot of their clients aren't even within the major OTAs. So there's our major hotel chains. So there's probably still a ton of space for them to grow. And I think they're a sign too of, with all the OTAs out there, of sort of tracking prices. And it's not just, and we think in the hotel or short-term rental industry, it's like, where are our competitors putting on Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com? It's such a relatively small ecosystem. And with the hotels, it's hundreds of different OTAs out there, and each different OTA for each country that you're operating in, someone that really has that sort of scale and visibility and in the data ends up having a lot of power there.
So do you think they're going to go down and buy a PMS, RMS?
Or maybe it's just the money needed to integrate with all of them. And I'm sure, and we talk about the PMS ecosystem in short-term rentals, like it's just vastly more complicated when you get into hotels.
Yeah, well, speaking of hotels, we have another merger or acquisition that happened. Muse bought Atomize, so acquired them. And so this is kind of moving in this M&A direction for the year. And I think really interesting adding an RMS to their their stack. Jamie, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, and again, and revenue management solutions, RMSs, are, I think, becoming more and more sort of necessary, and sort of this dynamic space that we're in of like being able to react to demand trends on a real-time basis. I was reading a stat from Skift where they had said that only 10% of hotels globally had an RMS sort of dynamic pricing solution.
That like blows my mind. I can't, just because I don't know, in the short-term rental industry, I feel like everybody at this point knows that you need to have some sort of dynamic pricing to help you. It's just like, even if it's just your baseline and your revenue management team is using it, the fact that most hotels are just not using any sort of system like this is so shocking to me, especially with how I would say like dynamic and fluid hotel rates or like hotel inventory is. You would think that this would just be a given.
Yeah, and the thing that always surprised me in the hotel industry was one, how like, and we think about short-term rentals as sort of and separate, like there's all these different owners, all these different operators, like, and hotels, like there's so many different operators, so many different owners, and all doing their own thing. And most, like when you get outside of the big sort of chains, like it is wild west out there in terms of how people are operating. And they might have someone that's sort of manually setting rates. I spoke for years at the Best Western Conference, like every year at their annual conference, and they had the hardest time convincing their owners to start using dynamic pricing. And this is like 5 years ago.
What is the pushback on that?
And one, it's technology. You've got people that, and it's still mom and pop operations where it's a single individual owner. They bought one property, and they've sort of priced, and they price high on the weekends, low on the weekdays. It sort of goes back to what I talk about in short-term rentals of still the vast majority of short-term rental operators don't use dynamic pricing solutions. They price one rate or two rates or three rates for the entire year, and don't adjust it. So, I have to continually remind myself of those that are using dynamic pricing solutions, even like using Airbnb rates, is still like the exception rather than the rule, as most people just go on and set a single rate out into the future on what they think their property can earn.
Well, I think that I do have some, like, if I was to view it from their perspective, this is the most, I would say, one of the more complicated sides of the business. It's a lot of, math and forecasting. And that if you got into this business and you're really good at organizing your maintenance and your housekeeping, forecasting your revenue might not be your strong suit. But then I would think that you would be like, oh, great, there's a piece of technology that can do that for me or really help me. Also, do not just use Airbnb rates. Like, if anyone is doing that.
That's where my mind went was, I'm curious how many short-term rentals even use a PMS currently.
Oh, it's such a small percent.
Less
I would say probably less than 10%.
Really?
That is so, I maybe it's just because I'm in my bubble of really professional operators, but that seems crazy to me because we did it without a PMS in the beginning because we didn't like the options that we had. And it was very like there just becomes a point where that's so hard and you're losing money and I just can't imagine doing that.
Yeah. I think that's part of why there's not a mass adoption of revenue management software, because there's not mass adoption of a property management system in which to house it. Right. The only revenue management software that the vast majority of people have at their fingertips is what Airbnb gives them as part of their suite. So I think, step one is find a PMS. Step two, automate as much as you can, because you're not going to be good at everything. To Brandy's point, you can be great at the cleaning or the operations or the guest management or the host management, but you're not going to be great at everything. And you want to find software to cover up your weaknesses as quickly as possible. But you have to have software first. We've run into this at Storied. We literally gave people a PMS to use so we could have online availability. No one used it. Zero adoption.
Oh, are you having trouble filling those nights? Have you tried putting it on the internet?
Yeah, we want more bookings. Well, we need to know what's available. One, we need to know how much you would charge. Two, and then we need to be able to market the availability and the rate. And yeah, it's somewhat straightforward, but there is serious pushback.
Well, and then I was talking to a friend who's building a revenue dynamic pricing product for Mexico and Latin America. And he was saying that just like now there aren't a lot of options. Like all the options are either coming from Europe or the US, and it's not really useful for those markets. And so even if you're a Mexican or a Peruvian operator or something, and you're like, okay, well, I have these options, but they're also they're not helping me anyway. So there does seem to be some areas of opportunity.
Yeah, and you look and arguably the biggest provider of revenue management solutions in the short-term rental space is Price Labs, and they have made inroads on both the property manager side and the individual host side, and they publicly talk about how they have 400,000 listings connected. So, and that they're global. So 400,000 listings. There's roughly 10 million listings globally across Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking. So that's 4%.
Yeah.
And they're like the dominant player in the space, and followed by like Beyond and Wheelhouse, which are only go after large property management companies. So there's still so much white space. And
seems like there's some opportunities there.
Yeah.
There's some opportunities there. And it's a big reason why we bought Uplisting, to sort of take PMS to the long tail. And we're investing heavily on revenue management just because we feel like there's still so much growth opportunity, and sort of take people on that path of like, all right, revenue management is sort of that gateway to like, all right, this is a way that I can actually improve my revenue at my property. Like
tangible.
Just using this software, I can increase my revenue by 20% by increasing rates during the peak season, dropping rates during the low season, really managing on a dynamic way. And then once you start doing that, you're like, oh, it'd be great if I could push these to multiple channels at the same time. And it's like, really use a PMS solution for this. Like,
yeah. This is, as Paul is saying, this is going to blow your mind, but I have a solution for you.
Yeah.
But that's also, I think part of it too, is because, it seems like people are having, if you're not using any of these systems, you're having a very reactionary reaction to these pricing. You're like, oh, this didn't work, and so I'm going to change the pricing, instead of saying, oh, I think this will work in the future, and that's why I'm going to adjust my pricing. So, and I do think there's like the scary nature of changing technology, and then also the scary nature of just like the numbers and the math. And so giving people like little bits of like, hey, just do this step one. And then I think to your point, like once they start to see, then you have some converts.
Maybe just one more comment, sort of bringing it back to Will being out today. He called in sick, right? Like events like F1. So like, and we would have all thought that F1 would have been a pretty big event for short-term rentals, and that would have been an event that you should really raise rates for. Like if you were, Randy, if you were operating in that market, you'd be like, hey, Taylor Swift,
those rates.
I'm sure like Max Verstappen coming to Las Vegas means that we need increased rates. And it's like, it's a non-event in Vegas. Like it's huge for the hotels. Like they're probably going to, and I know they crushed it last year. They're crushing it again this time. But like with all the infrastructure in Vegas to support it, like unless you're on the strip, unless you're downtown, like it's probably really hard to get there if you're staying in a short-term rental. Like we're actually seeing more demand in Vegas next weekend for Thanksgiving than we did this past weekend during F1. So,
well, it's so funny.
Love the party.
That's one of my like best friends in college, Kim. She grew up going to Vegas. They live in LA, and they would always go to Vegas like for family trips. And that just like didn't compute for me. But I think that a lot of people, the data is showing us, what says Thanksgiving, like gambling,
Hey,
Speaking of gambles, we have a relationship that has been rekindled So I'm kind of bummed that Will isn't here to talk about one of his favorite companies, but Expedia and Hopper have resumed their deal. I think probably one of the funniest, I guess, titles that Skift has ever had is Expedia punched Hopper in the mouth in 2023 when it cut off their relationship. But apparently you can bounce back from that because now they're back together. So we see kind of that renewed, Expedia has this focus on their B2B sector, and Hopper is obviously now part of that. On Hopper's side, that came with another reduction in staff, which was all of the people that were working on building those direct hotel partnerships that they don't need now that Expedia is there. So yeah, kind of an interesting about face in a year.
Yeah, it looks like they've thrown in the towel on trying to compete with the Bookings and the Expedias of the world. It made sense a year and a half ago when Expedia broke up with them because they kept talking about how big they're growing and how much competition they're going to give the big boys, but that competition never came. And this is basically Expedia saying, okay, here, we'll help you out a little bit. Just give us our cut. And the new CEO of Expedia is, I believe she came out of the B2B segment. And so this is her bread and butter. Makes total sense. Why not? I mean, they've kind of proven not to be on the same level of competition. So you may as well be the one supplying them and getting the revenue from their eyeballs versus a booking. So good for them to re-land the deal, to punch them in the mouth and then come back around and help a wounded animal.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because one of Expedia's big qualms with Hopper last year was that their product, quote, exploits customer anxiety and confuses them. So it's like that hasn't changed, though. The technology hasn't changed. So I wonder if there's going to be any push to improve on that, or it's just.
I think they probably just gave that excuse because they were a little worried about competition, and they can't publicly say we're worried about competition from Hopper, so we're going to break up with them. No, you give some BS example.
Their product is terrible.
But too, that is Expedia protecting their hotel partners, right? So if their hotel partners came back to them and like, hey, we actually liked being on Hopper. Like, we don't want to have to do our own relationship with them to get our supply distributed through their platform. Like, we really liked sort of your sort of B2B sort of distribution play. Like, and do the hotels really need Expedia to protect them from the scary bunny?
Scary bunny.
I've liked Hopper's financial tools. As a distribution play, app led, app only, and then focused on Gen Z, I just struggle to see how that's a big market. And you can tout as many downloads as you want, but that doesn't mean conversions when a 16-year-old is downloading your hotel app and never making a booking. So,
well, yeah, it's kind of like getting to that generation a little bit too soon. Like their buying power hasn't really come into the forefront yet.
Timing is everything. But I mean, you see there are still delineations on what generations use. My parents still would only use Vrbo. I generally go direct, but I'm agnostic. I'll use Vrbo, Airbnb, or go direct. But I've never met anybody, and maybe I'm a generation too old, but I've never met anybody that says, "Oh yeah, I only book on Hopper."
But remember when we all first started going on Airbnb, it was, and we're generally in the same generation, like we're doing it for private rooms as a cheap way to travel. Like if Gen Z now is using Hopper as like that way to find discount, stay, save money, and then they sort of grow up on the platform, that is what you want, is to get them while they're young and then
Long-term
hook them
play.
and then have them have your sort of customer base grow with you. So, and I love the play, and I hear a lot of people excited about Hopper still to this day. And like, it may not be the platform today, but it could clearly be the platform tomorrow if the next generation is using it.
Yeah, and I totally respect, as much crap as we're giving, I totally respect like doubling down on what you're good at. And if adding supply isn't what you're good at, focus on the other things and work with a partner who literally already has every hotel and short-term rental in the world. So I don't think it's a bad move by any means to Hopper. It's just acknowledgement of where you are and what you're good at. And from Expedia's standpoint, I think they showed their power, and they are the elephant in the room, or the what is it, 10,000-pound gorilla? What's that saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they kind of showed their force, and probably have a lot of levers in that new agreement that they can pull to protect themselves. So it should be a win-win, and that's what good partnerships are all about.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, I think it just goes to show how difficult it is to be a new OTA even when you have the funding and the technology, actually getting all of that product. And we were trying to distribute on Hopper for a while, and it was it's hard. So especially now that Expedia and Vrbo's, that tech migration nightmare for them is over, and you have all of that combined, it's just like, it took so long for that to happen. I totally agree with you that Hopper made the right decision. Well, going into this next week, we have the biggest week of travel. So Jamie, do you have any fun information for us, or predictions for this coming week?
Yeah. And we're already starting to see air travel, and it's kicking off strong. It is going to be a big week, especially, and as it always is, especially for short-term rentals. It is one of the biggest weeks of the year across the board, and we're seeing pacing already above that of last year. I did go through and pull the markets with the strongest demand relative to the same Thanksgiving week this year or last year. And there is one sort of common theme throughout. Any guess on what that is?
Leisure markets with high ADR.
Family driven drive to?
No, think closer to home, Michael.
Ooh.
Staycations?
Closer to your home.
Beach? College?
Yeah, college football
towns.
town. So it's mostly the ones that have big games this weekend coming up, and didn't have those big games last year. So it's Oxford, it's Tuscaloosa, College Station, Athens, Tallahassee, and all crushing it with sort of big games coming up this weekend.
I remember those days when I would Airbnb my house and make 2 months of mortgage in a weekend. Those days have long gone. Too much supply. Damn you, Airbnb, for pushing supply growth. But oh well, here we are.
And Oxford this weekend, demand is up 210% compared to last year.
Wow.
Even after a loss this weekend. Wow.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't super up on our college football, what colleges would be in Oxford?
Ole Miss.
Oh. Ooh, I should know that. I had a cousin that played for Ole Miss.
I should know that.
Do you ever go tailgate at the Grove?
I haven't. I've heard it's legendary, though.
Yeah, shout out to my cousin Keith who went there. And it was...
What's up, Keith?
What's up, Keith? So much fun.
College tailgating is like, so I went to Northeastern in Boston, and like we were D1, but like basically didn't have sports, and the school like actively like tried to get people to not like party. And then I went to Miami tailgates, and I was like, what is happening? And I know that those are even a fraction of what some of the other like big Southern schools are like, but it like blew my mind. We're at the Dolphin Stadium drinking tequila out of the bottle with a straw. I mean, it was just craziness.
Oh yeah. Baton Rouge, Jaeger bombs at 8 a.m.
Mhm.
It's
It's a
crazy.
breakfast drink. It's a breakfast drink.
Yep.
The
Nice.
thought of
Well,
doing a Jaeger bomb now. Ugh.
yep. That's been a decade at least.
Hey guys,
Um,
Will's listening in, and like we probably shouldn't trigger him right now talking
Yeah,
about
that's fair.
He's pulling cake out of his hair.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, y'all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Good signs ahead for 2025 on the VC front, M&A front. Excited to continue to cover it. And also the vertically integrated M&A that Muse and probably Lighthouse and what you guys have done at AirDNA. So Guesty's done it as well. People are gobbling up and trying to become more and more vertically integrated. So have a good Thanksgiving. Safe travels to you both.
All right. And we'll see you all next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.